Hello, it's me again, Morbid Sleep.
Buckle up, kids, this one's gonna be fun. I'm not very good at memorizing my scripts to begin with, so this one is gonna be interesting. So please forgive me if it looks like I'm reading, because I am. Most of my videos are probably better just to listen to anyway, otherwise you're just like staring at my face most of the time. Simon Baron Cohen is a clinical psychologist and professor of psychopathology at the University of Cambridge in the UK. The name might sound familiar to you because Sacha Baron Cohen, I don't believe they're related, but that's the guy that plays Borat. This guy is a psychologist and professor of developmental psychopathology. In 1997, he formulated the fetal sex steroid theory of autism. Real quick, my understanding of this theory is that autism is basically an excess of male brain. That's a big simplification, and it kind of sounds like quite the hot take when I put it so shortly, but it is just a small piece of the rest of this video. Because he developed this theory while working on another theory, one that I think he's more famous for outside of psychology. That would be the empathizing, sympathizing, or ES theory, as I'm going to call it for the rest of this video because it's less of a mouthful. This theory, again simplified, is essentially that all people are either an empathetic brain type or a sympathetic brain type. Or, more accurately, all people are some combination of the two. The test developed on this idea is supposed to generate 5 different brain types, depending on the presence or absence of discrepancies between their scores on E or S. So, 2 things here. 1, the ES profiles created by this test show females have a more empathetic ratio, and males tend towards a more systemic ratio. 2, people on the autism spectrum tend to have a greater discrepancy between the 2 scores, usually having an unusually low E score and an unusually high S score. This is why I mentioned the fetal sex steroid theory, or the male brain theory of autism. Basically, if these theories are more than just theories, this means to us peasants out here that, firstly, it would mean that there is a difference in brain structure between males and females. Whether it is socially ingrained or biological is another matter entirely. Secondly, this means that girls are bad at fixing cars and boys are bad at being good friends. Of course, this is a colorful oversimplification, but I think you see what I'm saying. And I think you probably picked that up already from just even the name of the test. This would be a pretty solid link between femininity and more social-oriented behaviors and abilities, such as empathy and taking social cues and being able to read a room, versus more material, physical, practical abilities and traits that could then be attributed to men. And finally, thirdly, that people on the autism spectrum supposedly have an extreme version of a typically male score, aka male brain. So, as to my own thoughts on pretty much everything I just said, I'm skeptical. To me, any assertion of that kind of binary is always going to be a little sus. I'm not saying necessarily that the research is wrong or biased somehow, I think that research by itself is maybe an oversimplification, or that maybe more research around it needs to be done, or it should be put in context of other research. This video is really about that specifically. I also think even if Baron Cohen doesn't intend for it to reinforce some kind of social gender binary, specifically in the way men and women supposedly think, and therefore in their apparently inherent and biological strengths and weaknesses. This study could have some at least annoying implications for humans, if not outright oppressive. I don't think that's gonna happen. I'm just thinking here, just spitballing. Of course, I am not a psychologist, and I haven't read any of Baron Cohen's actual studies yet. And as I said, all studies kind of have to be nestled into the entire context of all the other studies done around that study and that relate to that study and whatever the current prevalent thoughts are in the community about what is and isn't true. Science is jukey like that, especially psychology. But this isn't even what this video is about. I bet you guys were wondering, where's the fire? Where's the metal? Where's the goat sacrifice? Well, I'm sure many a metalhead has at least in passing heard of the study undertaken by Professor Adrian North, reading my script here, of Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh. The study's findings graced many an online article's headlines. Preferred music style is tied to personality. Well, that may seem obvious, I think, and considering I seem to be doing a series on personalities and political... But North actually decided to measure this, and he found that metalheads and rock fans have low self-esteem, are creative, not hardworking, not outgoing, gentle, and at ease. The headline that I saw everywhere and heard at every family event was that the study also shows that heavy metal and classical music attract people of very similar personalities. This was probably the preferred angle of most websites because of the stereotypes that non-metalheads seem to have about metalheads. I'm really interested about this idea generally, like how the stereotypes function, but I think I'll save that for another video. Anyway, a few years earlier, Baron Cohen and his gang of psychologist buddies basically came to the same conclusion, albeit through a slightly different path and with less clickbait-worthy results. So, Baron Cohen's deal is the ES theory, which is about cognitive style, not necessarily personality. Essentially, Baron Cohen and his buddies' findings showed that a high empathy score on the ES scale betrayed a preference for more mellow, unpretentious, and contemporary music. R&B, folk, and acid jazz being examples of those three qualifiers respectively. A high systemizing score, surprise, 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 showed preference for intense, pretentious, and complex sounds. Even within specified genres, there was a marked difference. Empathizers preferred mellow jazz, while systemizers preferred avant-garde jazz. The researchers mentioned the impact these findings could have on the music industry, and oh god, just thinking about how Spotify and YouTube would exploit this is giving me COVID-19. Now, I actually took this EQ-SQ test myself after doing most of this research. They do collect data from this test, but if you want to take the test, I'm going to put the link probably down below or somewhere so you can find out for yourself if you're a high E score or S score or perfectly balanced in the middle. I think I find the research about personality and cognitive style and how it relates to what music you like to be mostly useful as a conversation topic. I don't feel it is concrete enough to be useful for streaming platforms for a couple of reasons. Most obviously because my score would indicate that a streaming platform should show me more mellow, unpretentious music. I don't feel that I necessarily have to have an interest in complex song structures to enjoy structurally complex music. I got a significantly lower systemizing score, and yet I definitely prefer punk music, metal music, classical music, and more highly conceptual music over R&B and mellow jazz. Which brings me to my next nitpick, I guess, about this study, which is, of course, that there are quite probably other variables that were not accounted for in either of these studies. Socioeconomic, cultural, and maybe even circumstantial factors could possibly affect what type of music a person is interested in listening to. In my video about politics and metal, I kind of touch on this, so you should go check that out if you're interested in sort of exploring that specific concept a little bit further. But I also wonder if, even within the framework of the study, is it possible that maybe we're measuring the wrong thing? Based on my results, for example, I would be hard-pressed to classify the person behind the numbers as particularly intellectual or academic, which is kind of what I feel is implied by saying a person with a high S score is more likely to listen to structurally complex music. I'm not so sure that I would choose the terms intellectual or academic to describe myself at all, but I find it hard to deny that researching various psychological and psychopathological studies, papers, and articles in order to write a script about an idea that I had myself thinking a lot about and reading about for months is kind of sounds a little bit academic to me. Not academic in the institutional sense, but academic in the sense that I am putting the time and effort into researching stuff and trying to remain accountable and cite sources and come up with some kind of an answer. Of course, there's the question of maybe I did the test wrong or it was a fluke. I believe I answered the questions very accurately, and actually the extremely low SQ score, while lower than I expected, was actually not that surprising for me. A low SQ score really only confirmed what I already know about myself. I definitely think it's possible to trick the test, or mess up, or be just in a bad headspace, I guess, to accurately take the test. But I don't think that's the case for my particular test results. Basically, my theory is that the concept itself is flawed, or just not intended to be used as such a definite tool. It's probably a little bit of both. Psychology is, understandably, a little bit of a hands-wavy and difficult science. Basically, under Baron Cohen's theories, I am totally unaccounted for, and that means there's probably a lot of other people who are also completely unaccounted for. This test is mostly used for autism research, and actually I read a really interesting paper about autism and black metal and spirituality, which referenced Baron Cohen's work quite a bit, and I'm going to link it down below or somewhere. It's actually the reason that I started thinking about cognitive styles and basically did the research and made this video. So, yeah, that's really everything I have to say about it, I guess. There's no conclusion, I just think it's interesting. Leave a comment below if you'd like to see me do a video about stereotypes and how that affects the metal community and how that affects non-metalheads.